Good day, everyone. Today it's a beautiful sunny day, which means, of course, it's a great time to stay inside and program a little bit. And today we're going to work on semaphores. And I will be the first to admit I find semaphores a little bit confusing, so I was trying to maybe not use them, but I realized that we probably need to do that. We probably do need to use them. And the reason why I realized this is if we are just building the game quickly and we go to game, we have our thread here and we can comment out the sleep. You will see here that we are having a rather inconsistent frame rate. Mostly it's around 33 milliseconds, but also we can randomly get 53 milliseconds or 34 or 44. And the way we can fix this temporarily is by adding a sleep in the threads. And now you can see it's way more consistent. Now it's not perfect. It's maybe better if we do sleep 1. Yeah, now it's very consistent. It might still be like some lag spike sometimes. But essentially what this is telling me is that my threads are fighting for the jobs, and possibly Windows is also punishing me for the fact that I'm just hogging these threads and using them very um, um, what do you say? I'm being very greedy about using them, right? But of course, we don't want to sleep here. That causes other issues. And you can see that actually we are having the work being done also being rather randomly. It's rather random values. You know, sometimes you're having 0.8 milliseconds, and then other times you're having 4 milliseconds for the game loop. So that's not very good. And I think the solution for all of this is to use semaphores to sort of more schedule the work. Now, before we begin, there was another bug where if I am playing the game and I start pressing X, but I'm just holding it, you can see that we're drifting away like this. And also you see that the prints they stop printing. And I realized the reason why this happens is because in our game, we are having Win32 window. And in here, we're having peak message, translate, blah, blah, blah. And then later we are running the game. But what happens when we are holding this button is that we're halting the thread on the message loop. So the game is still running. Well, the graphics thread is still running. And in graphics, we are having this DT normalized. And this is taking the time, the current time, divided by the target time. But of course, if the current time goes above the target time, because you know the game loop is not updating, then this becomes above 1. And that's why, you know, we're spinning and I'm holding this and then it spins out of control. Because right now the game is completely paused, nothing is updating, but the graphics is having this delta time being above 1, and it might even go to like 5, 10, 20, 50, 100, 200. So I just want to make sure that we cap this. So if dt normalized larger than 1, then dt normalized equals 1. So now it should be exactly the same, except when the game is halted, the drawing is also halted. Now later in the stream, I'm thinking I would like to put the messages on a separate loop or on a separate thread. But that's not the priority right now. So, that's just a quick fix that I realized while not programming, actually. Yeah, we need to add semaphores to our threads. So how do we do this? We can take a look at the notes that I have. We are having create semaphore A, wait for single object, and release semaphore. Those are the basic functions that we need to use. So we can just start with going to the documentation for this. So we are having security attributes, that's nothing. Initial count will be 0. Maximum count, I don't know, we can just put some value there. We could put the value of number of threads, I guess, but I think I would rather put the number of maximum jobs so that we can schedule multiple things more than the number of threads that we have. So I think we can just literally put in the task count max there. Wait. And then we can give it a name. I don't think we need one. I don't think we need more than one semaphore. So yeah, we get back a handle, which is a I64 star, I think. Yeah. So very similar to this mutex. So we have mutex create, destroy, lock, release. So we just do a very similar. Right. So yeah, this is null pointer. Initial count 0, maximum count. Let's say task count max -1, because we can't actually have 1024 counts, I think. Name, null pointer. And then we should check what is the return if it fails. It's null. And otherwise, semaphore handle equals handle. Right. Similarly, destroy. I guess that can fail. Right. Then we have wait for single objects. Milliseconds. Maybe we just pass that in. See, it takes a handle, number of milliseconds, and then it returns something. It returns a D word. And I think these are the things it can return. And if it's wait object 0, that's good. If it's wait timeout, if it's wait timeout, we can return false or something like this. But wait failed should be a huge issue. So I guess if we can do this, and then and otherwise we have error A. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, and it's just telling you that you can wait on multiple things. For example, a mutex. But I don't think we will be using that. Then we have finally TFL result semaphore release. I don't like this name, release. Maybe we try to keep it to push and pop like before. So release semaphore. We need the handle. Release count. Count. We don't need this, I don't think. And then the return values are if it fails. So it could fail if this count is higher than the max. So I guess we can just do a tfill assert. Wait. That works because we're checking for -1. Message is well, this doesn't work because maybe the semaphore is already having 5 and then we're trying to push 1,000. Do we have an assert here? Yeah, I think that's all we need to do, really. Do semaphores need some particular alignment? It doesn't mention anything. Does it need to be volatile? They're not using it. I'm just going to try to be safe. Right. Where did we call the mutex? It was in main. Well, we need to know the function definitions. Create, destroy, pop. Push, and that's it. Oh, that's it. Ah, good point. So the compiler tells me I don't really need to do that. If I want, I can do volatile here. And in fact, I can do this. So I don't need to do this at all. There. Okay. Actually, no, the handle doesn't need any of that. I changed my mind. Okay. So we go back to the threads. And ideally, you would have nothing here, like infinite. But at least on Windows, even if you close your application, I think there's a possibility that the threads just keep running. So we do want to put some high value here, like 1,000. Now it's going to be 0. And I'm not popping anything. So I think we might just be stuck. No, it's running, but badly. Why? Oh, because we're... Um, I think it might be because we are timing out. And then they come back and do something. And then go back to sleeping for a second. Now it's 100 seconds. So I think... No, it's still doing sort of the same. This can return false. So let's wrap it. can't move the window, so that tells me the main thread is stuck doing something. That's what I would expect to happen before. But we never hit any assert. Oh, actually, why is it not working? This should just stop the threads from running. And then the main thread should still process everything. Is it because of this? But the thread should hit this, find no work, and then go to semaphore pop. Which they do. It is hitting the assert, but the assert is hitting on the thread, so the main thread is still running. Okay. Something is going on. Task run all. Thread process all. You wish you could confidently write code without looking up a tutorial or writing spaghetti. Well, I have definitely done both before. The first program I made, like the first real program I made, was, I think it was in Unity, and I was programming C#. And that just became total spaghetti after a couple of days with the inheritance stuff and multiple functions. And I forget what I was doing. I was trying to do something not so complicated actually, but something about the object oriented nature of it just kind of confused me. So now I'm at the point where I feel pretty confident writing applications from scratch, but it took a lot of effort just learning how to structure your code. Now, I'm not following any particular pattern. I know some people like to do that. I'm just kind of doing what works for me. But I think what works for me is also pretty straightforward. And basically my philosophy is just the computer doesn't care about the structure of your code. The structure of your code is entirely up to you, like to a degree, right? But I am programming in the way that I understand it the best, which is one thing happens in order, or everything happens in order in the way that I expect them to happen. And then no matter if I'm having a bunch of functions or something like that, I can still follow the flow because not only like I wrote it, but like it's doing the things in the order that I expect them to be done. But I have seen some people, they are writing programs with very short functions. And my average function is probably a couple of hundred lines of code. And then every function, like heap manager count or whatever. Okay, this one is only one line of code. So like I'm not allergic to short functions, but like sometimes I see this is all the code in the entire program. And I find that is completely, I am completely unable to keep track of what's going on in a program like that. And also if I'm stepping through it in the debugger, I have no idea what's going on. I want to just put my my break right there and step one by one and be able to see exactly what happens in my parameters, see how they change, and I can go to the memory and I can follow along and I can see what the values are and all of that stuff. And that's the way that I find it intuitive. And when I find that when I write programs like that, I even if I forget what I was doing, I can fairly easily figure out what's going on. But yeah, this is a little bit of a different problem because this is about like multi-threading. It's complicated and it's difficult to debug, but it's complicated just on the implementation because some of these things you can't really see what's going on inside them. Like I have my wrapper functions here because they help me just with the logic. So like this makes sense to me because like this is a function that I wrote, but sometimes I'm just wrapping, release semaphore. It's just wrapping, it's just being wrapped by semaphore push right now. But I don't really know about semaphores. Like I don't have an intuitive feeling for them. So wrapping them like this helps me understand a little bit. And it also gives me access to putting a breakpoint here to see when I'm calling it or something like this. Yeah. I need to figure out why is the main thread not processing everything in a good manner. So it was prefab process in game. No? You only use Godot, VS Code, and Roblox, or you mean you have used it in the past? All of this looks like witchcraft. Did you learn this all online, or did you need it to get a degree? I learned everything online. So I've shown this a couple times before, but doesn't hurt to show it again. I followed along this one just from the start, literally day one. And then I came up to day 100 or something like that. And you see there's like 700 videos in here. So there's plenty of content to go through. I just spent like, one or two, every day I was watching one or two episodes and I was programming along. And he also has, is it Casey Muratori or is it Molly Rockets on Substack? So he has a new series, but it's behind a paywall. And he's talking about more lower level than C. So like he's talking about assembly right now. And it's fairly interesting, but it's not necessarily super relevant to me, so I haven't been following along very much. But still, it's very useful to get an understanding for those kinds of things so that you know what's actually going on in the computer so that you can get the performance gains, or you can at least debug better whenever you hit a snag, right? But some of these things like learning multi-threading, I I I couldn't give you a good resource for that. It's something you just kind of learn by doing. So thread process all is the function name in here. So we're having the work queue. And that's another benefit with if you write a lot of code yourself and you are fairly low level, I can just inspect the thing here that is not working, and I don't have to refer to the manual or tutorial or something like this. There's something called tutorial hell, where you follow a tutorial and you learn someone's way of doing it, but then you only know that way of doing it. And you don't really understand why. And if you want to do something slightly different, you have no clue how to do it. So I would just focus on, like, I would recommend watching tutorials, like I literally just did, but I would focus on try to find tutorials that teach you how to make something, or they teach you how to do what you want to make rather than doing something that they just show you how to make it. So for example, let's say you want to make a platformer, you should look up tutorials on hitboxes and game physics, enemy logic. You shouldn't look up a tutorial for how to make a platformer, because then they will just show you about, like, there will be never a tutorial that is in depth enough to teach you how to make any platformer. They will just teach you how they make a platformer, and the way they make it is because they learned a bunch of stuff, and that's what they landed on. But if you look up how to, like, if you look up all of the technologies separately and then you piece them together yourself, then you have a much better understanding and you actually make a decision that is worthwhile. Something that you can motivate. Why did you pick that type of collision system? Well, it's because I looked at all the 5, 6 that I could find, and then I decided this one was the best for the thing that I want to make. So yeah. The work queue, we are having write index 152 and read index is 0. So we are 152 reads behind. But we only pushed. How many jobs did we push? Ah, okay. It's just the last one. All right. When we get here, initially, it will be, well, maybe not there. When we get here initially, it's going to be 150, 140 odd prefabs per thread. But then on the very last one, it goes here. We are having just one left over. So I'm overwriting that because I'm not expecting to read it outside. That's fine. Then we get here and we have, like I said, we're like 130 indexes behind. So am I not popping the job? No, I'm doing it. I just want to solo main thread right now. It might be the best coding advice you've been given because you have rarely ever spoken to another programmer. Much appreciated. Well, you're welcome. If you have any other questions, let me know. I'm always happy to yap. Yeah. Why are there so many jobs queued, by the way? I feel like there shouldn't be that many. And you can see the read index is 142 where we were before, but the write index is 50, which is 8, which is what I expect because I'm having, 6 worker threads plus 1 or something. So yeah, it's like 8 behind. Oh, or I might know why. It's because at the very start, but no. The reason why it's high is because I am pushing a bunch of jobs to this queue. But where? It's 78 before we even reach here. Text create, primitive create. Is it just this? I know I'm creating a bunch of asteroids, but hold up. It might be in here. No? Well, now I'm starting to forget. Entity add primitive. And I'm creating 1,000 of these. But at the start of the game, when following coding tutorials, do you just follow them or do you also take notes? I think I just kind of watched them. In the beginning, when I was very fresh and I didn't know too much, I I just kind of literally wrote every line of code the same as the tutorial. The most important thing is that if you go to a tutorial, you can't just like copy paste the code into your project and run it and like be like happy, because like that does nothing. Same thing if you would prompt an AI to generate some movement code, or if you're using Godot, like, oh, how do I add the text box to be at this position? Like if you just you can do that, but you should always write it yourself based on the feedback that it gives you. And actually, if you're using AI, I would recommend you to do it inverse. So don't, you can ask it for how do I do X, but then read what it says and then write the code yourself and then copy paste the code back and say, did I do any mistakes? Or like, is there something I could improve here? Because what I see people do very frequently is they are taking the code from AI and just run it. And then when something breaks, they are feeding that back to the AI and just let it fix it, or like tell me where the mistake is. But if you want to learn, I would recommend you to write everything yourself as much as possible, because honestly, writing code is not the bottleneck for most programmers. The bottleneck is thinking about how the program should work and thinking about how you should structure your code. Writing code, like, it feels like you're writing a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, you don't actually spend so much time writing compared to thinking about what you should write. And if you like, you shouldn't transfer your thinking to the AI, because then you are not growing as a developer. You're not learning. You're just kind of using it as, I don't know, you're letting the AI design it for you. But actually, when people say software development, like, development is the most important word there. It's not like programmers aren't, you're not writing prose. You're not making poems. So like the structure and names of the code, like, do that however you want. Like, I don't care. But the structure, like how you actually design the code to work, and designing it to work on the computer well. So like sometimes you have languages or features that are very abstract. So they might help you to reason about a problem, but it doesn't help the computer at all. The computer just has to execute the code. So learn how the code runs on the computer, design your program to be easily understood by a person, because ultimately the person reading the code is the person who needs to understand it. And then you can use AI as a tool. You can use uh, tutorials as a resource. You can buy books. You can read blogs. And like, there's many different sources that you can learn from, but like ultimately you are the author of your code, or you should be the author of your code, because otherwise you have no understanding of it. Yeah. I hope that answers the question. Right. When I call prefab meteoroid create, in start game. Start game is in game.c. We have, why is there 96 write jobs? Where's this coming from? And it's not static. It's always like a different number. Zero. So let's see, when does write index change? Create button, start menu, break. Go through all the prefabs. There's none of them. Game run does nothing, I hope. Yep. Window loop. So we come here again. Now we have started the game. So somewhere between, hold on. $360, where is that coming from? On the topic of AI, what is my opinion on it being used for coding, and what is my opinion on vibe coding / vibe coders? Well, I think I have mentioned this a couple times before. If you want to be an artist, then you're doing a pretty bad job if you're writing prompts into an AI and letting it do it for you. And same thing, if you want to be a writer, you probably should not have an AI generate the book for you and then you just, publish that. Like it's a tool like any other, and it's what you make of it. Like you could, like 10 years ago, you could go on GitHub and steal code, and you could go on, what's it called again? Stack Overflow and copy paste. And you could like kind of throw something together. But are you a coder because you did that? Like, I would argue not. So I just don't, it's a completely different category of thing that I don't know what to call it. Like vibe coding, I don't think is a good term for it, because you're not actually vibe coding. Like there's no vibe and you're not coding. So I don't know what to call it. It's like, it's kind of like this. It's the difference between if you would be making a website, there's a difference between writing the HTML and CSS yourself and downloading, what is it called again? Like downloading and paying for Wix, if you know about that. So I nothing against Wix, like there's many services like this, but it's just like very good example. If you download this Wix thing and you give them your, hard-earned money to give you buttons to generate HTML for you, then like sure you could call yourself a website designer maybe, but you didn't make the website. You just used a program to create it for you. Like you if you don't know anything about how it works, then you're not a website developer. You're not a, you know, HTML programmer. You're just pushing buttons in a program, and that's fine because not everyone has to be writing their own HTML to say that they made a website. But like it's a very different thing. And it's even worse when it goes to, like, for me, programming is very creative because you have very good control. You have so much freedom over the systems and resources in the computer, and you can do some crazy cool things if you like think about it. Most of the time, probably the easiest solution is the best. So you just like kind of do that. And there's a lot of, annoying things in programming that you just kind of have to get past. So like I can understand using tools to help with that. But I think like everyone can agree that, you know, if you want to be a programmer, then you should write code. Like, and anything you do to help you doing that can be a good thing. But if you're avoiding programming and you still call yourself a programmer, then, that doesn't really mix in my head. So when I need to maybe go to threads here, push. What's the first thing that's being pushed? Add font. So why did I not see that before? And why does it add hundreds of tasks? Add primitive. Game run. Thread start? Wait, no. Okay. 110. $750. I mean, that's fine. I do wonder You started using NeoCities to learn HTML. HTML is fun and a bit confusing. I don't like HTML. I find it very annoying to write anything useful in it. But, you know, it's it's what you have to deal with. Like I can say that I am using a lot of AI help when when I made my website. So, but like I said, I wrote everything myself. So how do you do this again? Page source, right? So like I wrote all of this myself, but there was some point where I was thinking, okay, how do I center this properly? Or like, how do I put this on the left while this is centered in the margin in between? So then I asked like AI, how do I do this? Because I don't really know how to do it. And I don't really care because I'm not a web developer. I just want to center my div. So it gave me something and I was writing that and I was messing around with it. And, you know, sometimes I'm having these overrides. Sometimes I'm using the CSS. The same thing if we go in here. How do I make this table of contents? But like, it's all based on, like, I know what I want to make and I know what it should look like and how it should perform. But when I go to like some random website and it takes 2 seconds for just the JSON to download, like something is wrong. Like that's vibe coding for me. Like using AI or Googling, like how do I center a div? Like that's fine. That's just how development goes. That's how you learn. Like this is also CSS. Like I was thinking about how should I present code in an HTML page. So I knew that I wanted to do this, and you know maybe I got some help with the CSS, but like everything is still written by me, and none of the content of the page is generated. Like that's all me. So I want to stress again, like I'm not saying that you should never, like people are very black or white when it comes to these things, that you do either you're a purist and you do everything as a human being, like, and you have to go to the library and borrow a book about HTML programming from 2004 and do it exactly the way it says. Otherwise, you're doing it wrong. And then other people are like, why wouldn't you just prompt engineer your websites? It's a waste of time to do it any other way. And then they have non-functioning websites. So like, I think there's a middle point. Was Sean Barrett? Is it Barrett? Yeah, nothings.org. Like, I think there's a middle ground between a website that looks like this, which is still very useful, but you know, this is straight from 1996. And he has some articles, so you can read it. And it's just like, it's very straightforward for what it is. And like, if you just want to get your words out there, like it works. But I think there's a middle point between that and, you know, some atrocious websites. Like, I don't even know. There's what I can use as an example. But like, you know what kind of websites I'm talking about. I have a feeling that this is the reason why it's a bunch of tasks being created. Wait, oops. window call stack. Oh, I'm pushing the game sleep. That's why. That's stupid. Okay. That might be literally the reason why I'm having issues. Because I'm pushing 6 times sleep, but I don't have any workers that are grabbing it. So the main thread is just sleeping for no reason. Yeah. Silly me. Okay. I just added that as a like debugging trick. Or not even debugging trick. Like I was trying to think of ways to not have the lag, which I fixed by adding a sleep to the thread rather. But then I left it in and yeah, I was sleeping for 100 milliseconds for no reason. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. So now it's working exactly as I would expect. Are we not? Yeah, we are perfectly on time. Everything is good, although we are slow because we're only using one thread. And it's between 22, 31 milliseconds. 31 milliseconds is a bit high. But oh well. So I want to move this to be a semaphore. So then I think what we do is to semaphore push. And we need a count. The count is how many times we pushed this. Is that job index? We do, yes. Maybe we just do the work if there's less than, 6 prefabs to update. Right? We don't need to push that onto some queue and then multi-thread that. What's the args? start index is, well, it's 0. The count is the count. And then we just update them. Okay, I don't know if I'm actually using Semaphores now. Or if it's accurate. 1,002 jobs we are trying to push. That's incorrect. Because we have sliced up the work of 1,000 to, 1,002 divided by 8 or 6. In your Japanese class 3 days ago, your Japanese teacher showed you a bingo website he made with Uncle Claude. And he gave you the HTML code for it today. See, I think that's a very good use of vibe coding, so to say. Because that is a teacher that isn't necessarily having any technical skill in development, and they're not expected to, and they're not trying to be, and they just want to have something like simple, fun, something they can spend an evening on for their students to enjoy, over the course of a week or, a couple of days, something fun. And then if it's good enough for that, if it can create that, like it's exactly the same. Like when I grew up, years ago, so I'm not too old, but you know what I mean. When I grew up, our teachers would also have, some free service or some game or something like this, and they would, instead of like, they would use this program to generate something for us to use in class. And like that's what it's made for. It's like literally, if I'm going to math class and I'm using Google Sheets to calculate something, then that's what the tool is used for. Like it's what it's supposed to be for. So I think that's a good it's a good use for it. Well, this one can fail, no? So if we want to make this really, if we want to make this good, prefab task scheduled ++. You got given a micro pico by your school 3 days ago, so you could tinker around with it in VS Code. It only has the LED light, so all I've made with it is a Morse code translator. So micro pico, I have never heard of that before. Sounds like a microcontroller. Or is it a microcode emulator? MicroPython project for the Raspberry Pi Pico. Okay. I have programmed with Raspberry Pis and similar microcontrollers. And I found it very difficult, not because of the code or how to use it, but rather because I didn't know of a good way of debugging for it. And really what I needed was an emulator with a debugger similar to this. And I don't know that a good one really exists. But that's fun. I like it. And I think it's a good thing that kids these days have access to it to learn. The closest thing to hardware that I did as a kid was I built a radio, AM radio, and I was just using a kit that you bought and soldering it together and then listening to, I don't know, Russian AM broadcasts, because like I think even then in Sweden there wasn't really any real AM broadcasts. But the funny thing about AM radio is that literally you can have speakers. Like I remember specifically, I was like 10 years old and I was sitting at the computer and suddenly I heard Russian in the speakers. And I was like kind of freaked out because I didn't know what the hell was going on. And like I was trying to like unplug it or things like this to like see what was happening. And like when you unplug the speakers, it stopped working. But like there was nothing on the computer that was making it sound like this. And I realized later that the wire from the speaker to the computer was acting like a it was acting like a receiver, you know, like an antenna is the word. And it was just picking up AM radio signals from Russia, and it was going to the speaker, and it was like strong enough that it actually you could hear someone talking. So AM radio is pretty simple like that. See, we're pushing. I want to push this. And if it's not, then we need to do something about this. But we can do it later. I wonder if we should never hit this right now. Yeah, that's all good. So we're pushing this to the semaphores, but I suspect that we're never popping it. Or actually, I know that we're never popping it because I never wrote the code for it. So is there a way for me to see the number in the semaphore? I guess I have to use some using semaphore. I would have to look this up. And I don't really want to do it. I could do it as a debugging thing just to see what happens. Current semaphore count. NT. So it seems like no. You have to release it and grab the count and then increase it again or something. Actually. This release semaphore is the one that gives you the count, right? Previous count. So I just want to see what it is after some time. And if you were watching before, I was talking about how you learn. Like, I am learning how to use semaphores right now because I'm playing around with it. I'm looking at the memory, and I have questions to myself like, oh, can I look at the count? What is it? I'm expecting it and predicting it to be a high value, and then I'm seeing if it actually is. And then, you know, that's how you start to learn and remember things. Here. Push. It's a D word, isn't it? Long? So we don't have to use it. It will be optimized out, I think, automatically. But no, we run it for a couple seconds. We go in here. Previous count was 0 because we're decrementing it. No? See, this is... I keep forgetting. Release count. Release should increment it. Building a radio sounds super cool. Well, it was fun when I was 12. Today, I wouldn't be as interested, maybe. FM radio I've never made, so that could be interesting. But AM radio, like, I literally made an AM radio by mistake by plugging in my speakers to my computer. So, and yeah, for sure they make those kits. There should be more things like that for kids nowadays. Everyone is too engrossed in their phones. There are some things. I don't know if it's more or less. You know, there's chemistry. There's chemistry kits for kids. I remember that I had one and I really didn't like it. Or no, I didn't have chemistry. I had like magnet experiment. I had something like this, and it was fun. But like, I think I played with it for one evening, and then I got this metal dust everywhere, and then I just kind of threw it away because there was nowhere to like put it back into the package. And when it comes to electronics, like you can have something like this. I don't know if it's worth it to do anything with it. Maybe it is. But you have to be careful because, well, I guess you don't necessarily need to solder anything. The cool thing for me when I was making the radio was learning how to solder, because that's a skill that you can kind of do anything with, especially with microcontrollers. Because that's again like this what we were talking about, tutorials and stuff. If you buy a easy electric circuit experiments kit for your kid, and he goes through them all, and it's all prepared in a package for him where you just like put things, like connect them together like Lego. probably they're going to have fun for a day or two, maybe a weekend, But if instead you teach your kid how to solder and how to design circuits themselves, and then give them a bunch of components and tell them to, like, hey, make something cool, or like, what do you want to make? Do you want to make a radio today? Well, just pick out the components that we need and we build it. We don't need a kit. And maybe you don't know how to make a radio yourself, so you look it up online, but then you are not looking up the tutorial for doing a specific thing. You're learning how to do the actual skill of building something, and then learning how to make something that you want to make. So it's very similar in that regards. So yeah, the semaphore value increased. It's increasing the count. So I do this. The semaphore is now 1. I think I'm talking a little bit too intensely. Yeah, the semaphore should now be at 1. But I never pop it. Okay, maybe I do. I guess I am doing it. I'm pushing, and am I ever popping? Because I go in here, this count is always 0. So who is popping? It's the thread is popping. And then it's processing this together. So you know what? Let's go to the thread here and just disable it, because it's throwing me off a little bit. So the first time I'm expecting 0, but the next time 3,000. Oh, that's a lot. Okay. It was just some random value in memory. Okay. So we keep pushing, and then 40. At some point, we're going to hit the maximum. Let's disable that. Yes, release semaphore failed. So now it's behaving like I'm expecting to. So yeah, we are pushing, but this is why I was doing this. I need to in this thread process all, I need to release the semaphore. Pop. No, this is the difficult thing. If there's a job found, I can pop it with a 0 timeout. I gave you advice so good it made you touch your game you haven't worked in 2 weeks. That's nice. Good luck with that. So I think I would rather, I think I need to redesign this a little bit. So I'm pushing all of my things, and then I want to join when there's work. And I know that I have pushed as many semaphores as there is work to do. At least I pushed the ones I pushed here. But actually, I am having, as you can see, multiple references. So I'm pushing here twice, and I'm pushing there. Or no, that's the definition. Never mind. Yeah, I'm pushing in 3 places. So all of them needs to have a very similar way of doing it. Now, you could say maybe I should just push on the semaphore inside this function. But I don't want to do that because I want to finish pushing the work and then push the number of tasks that I have scheduled, because otherwise, I was making a comment here. Batch release semaphore to reduce OS overhead. So whenever you call release semaphore, a bunch of things are happening in Windows that can take, I don't know, microseconds. But essentially, you are incrementing this value atomically, and then Windows is scheduling a thread to wake up and grab it. And then when the thread is actually woken up, it needs to load the cache, and it's completely cold. So it takes a while for it to start up. And then it does the thing, and then it goes back to sleep. So if you can do this, if you have, let's say, 7 worker threads, then you kind of want to do that all at the same time. You don't want to do one thread wake up and then it starts cold and does its things and goes to sleep, and then the next threads wakes up, because then you're kind of losing out on the benefit of multi-threading. If the job takes more time, then it doesn't make a huge difference maybe. But in my case, I kind of want to try to keep everything in step. So everyone starts, wait until everyone is finished, and then go to the next step. So I don't want to put it into this task push. And that's fine here. But then I need to pop it if there is something. And I pop it with a 0 timeout. So maybe just let's type out the code, semaphore pop. And as you maybe remember, we are returning error when we have a timeout. That doesn't mean that there's a problem, but it means that there was nothing for us to wait for. Oops. Out of curiosity, how long have I been coding and how many coding languages do I know or are fluent in? Are fluent in? So it's kind of a hard question to answer. Professionally, I've coded since 2019, which is actually not that long. It's I guess it's been like 7 years. But as a hobby, I've been programming maybe 15 years. And for those first several years, I didn't really get anywhere with it. So like you, I think it was you, you mentioned something about, you know, making spaghetti or like looking at some lower level code and thinking it looks like witchcraft and not knowing how to do anything, looking up tutorials, not knowing what is the best practice. Like literally I would stop myself at every line and like, oh, is it better to have ret equal success or is it better to have not equal error? Like which one is more efficient? And the answer is like, don't even think about that. And I didn't realize because I didn't know. So I spent a lot of years just kind of, not, I wouldn't say wasting time, but like with not having any results for the effort I put in. And that kind of discouraged me. So I wouldn't be programming so much. But like I said, once I found the way to actually program in the way that I like, so low level, understanding what I'm doing, learning how to use APIs, uh, learning how to develop for any platform. Like you need to pick a platform and just like learn that first. So like I picked Windows because I'm using Windows computers. You can use Linux. You can develop for the web. You can learn an engine like Godot or, you know, whatever you're doing. And just pick one. And unfortunately, the thing I learned the best, and this is so bad. It's so stupid. I learned Visual Basic for work. So you have probably heard of Excel. So in case you didn't know, Excel comes with an entire scripting engine called visualbasic.net. So this is how I actually learned to program for real. And I hate this language. I think it's terrible. It's so badly designed. But I could use it for work. So I learned how to do this for Excel. And then later it was some other programs that I was using for work, also using the same language. And I just kind of got further and further into it. And then I was like, okay, I actually learned how to program now. So like, let's try. So I went to C++ with the tutorial that I was mentioning. And he taught you, or he was teaching, how do you actually develop something that you want to make? Not how to make a platformer in Godot, right? He was like, okay, we need to load a game controller. So how do we do this? We need to load an API. And, you know, there's a couple of options that we have. We are having a D input. We are having X input. Steam also has its own API right now. And this is how you find the documentation. These are the functions that you might want to use. This is before AI. So I didn't really have a way, like I didn't even know what to Google. How do you find something if you don't even know the term for it in the first place? Well, you you follow a book or tutorial, or you need to follow something. So through this method, I learned how to load APIs, how to find them even. And from there, I followed along. I made a software renderer. I made some like raw input stuff in Windows. And then on my own, I learned how to program my own server and client with sockets. And from there, I've just like been taking it on my own and learned more and more about DirectX, or right now OpenGL. I'm using Emscripten, although it's not working. But like this Windows application, right? I learned this was my goal for this program, for this project, to have it run in the browser. And look, well, it takes a second to load. It runs in the browser. This is my web page that I'm hosting, and it just works, right? So that's cool. That's fun. What would be my suggestion for someone starting to learn what and from where? Personal opinion, sure. Well, again, I keep coming back to this, but it's just so good. It's such a good resource. Handmade Hero. It was the only thing that worked for me. Because, of course, I also followed the Unity tutorial. I think I first used Unity in like 2013. So yeah, I followed this, not Game Maker's Toolkit, Brackeys, right? I followed this a lot, and I spent a couple weeks on it, and I realized that even after following it, like these videos are so short, they never get into the details. So like I just, even though I was following along, like I never got anywhere with it. Either because I didn't understand it, or because it didn't go in depth enough for me to form an understanding. But it's uploaded 9 years ago. Back then, I think this was like kind of the gold standards for YouTube tutorials about this stuff, at least in Unity. So like, I know this is very beloved. It has 11 million views, but like, this is exactly what you should not do. Don't watch this, or don't follow along. At least, like, okay, you can spend the 1 hour it takes to watch the 10 videos, but like, you will get nothing from it. It's pointless. It's useless. It does nothing. You will watch it and you will have learned nothing. And the same thing is true for most tutorials. Now there's some other videos that I've seen, but I haven't watched them. So there's this like C++ full tutorial, like 9 hours. Yeah, there's some videos like this, 10 hours and 30 minutes, 9 hours, 6 hours. I had 31 hours, right? So I haven't watched these. I can't say anything about them, but I can tell you for sure, there's nothing. If it's shorter than 6 hours, it's not going to go over anything that is particularly useful. And that's also what you can see here. Everything is like chopped up into 1 hour or 2 hour chunks. But there's 600 videos or 700 videos. So if you would actually spend the time watching through all of it, then you have spent like an entire university course worth of going through video material. And sometimes you need that. It just takes time. And the good thing about this is that he is not presenting something like, because all of these are edited, they are edited and they are made to be, you know, showing a concept and then, you know, taking it from there. And that's cool. That's a good, you know, dipping your toes into it kind of thing. But then at the end of the 6 hours, if you just watch it and you don't engage with it, you don't use it as you go, you again have learned nothing. You need to actually, like, I would say, like, take this video maybe, if that's what you're into, or this one. I can't vouch for any of them. Like, if you watch a video like this, watch 1 hour or even 30 minutes, and then spend an entire week just implementing and using what they were teaching you. And that's how you learn, because it's 10 hours of material teaching you the thing. But if you just watch it over the course of one day, and then the next day you try to use it, like, you will have no idea what you're doing. So yeah, lots of ranting today, but you know, the cool thing about this that I was going to get to is that those nine or 10 hours videos, they are edited and they have a purpose with what they're saying. Maybe not every single word, but you know, overall. Here, he is just going over the code as he is making it. So he knows what he wants to make, but he didn't prepare the code to make it. So you are following him on the process of developing the code, and he is explaining it as he goes, why he's making the decision, where to find the API. You will see when sometimes he has a bug and he spends an hour or two fixing it. And you know, that's also valuable information sometimes, because how do you debug a problem? How do you debug a problem when you don't know what's going on? Because sometimes it happens, and having someone show you, like, not in a controlled video, when you have this type of bug, you can do this tool or this tool. Like, it's not really, it doesn't feel the same way for me, at least. It's very useful to have someone who just, like, has an issue and deals with it, who has experience dealing with issues. And, you know, I am not trying to be as educational as this. But I mean, you can go to my channel also, and you can go through my playlist. And it's also like building up to a pretty decent, you know, 50 videos. And they're, you know, 1 hour, 3 hours, 4 hours. If you're curious about something, these are not really tagged, I guess. But like, okay, let's say that you are learning about OpenGL vertex buffer objects. Like, you can just take this video, you can play it at double speed, maybe with subtitles. I think you can even like auto translate the subtitles. Yeah, so like Abkhazian, now we have subtitles in your native language. And, you know, spend the 3 hours if you want to like see what I'm doing. And then you will also see that I am going to some online resource, or like I'm having a problem, so I'm using RenderDoc, and maybe you never heard about RenderDoc before, or you don't know how to use it. So then you can see, why am I using it in this context? Hey, Wolf Pokers, thank you for the subscription. I think that's my first subscription ever, so thank you for that. The VIP subscriber. You're making a game engine, ranting comes with the territory. I expect heavy cursing when you tackle physics, cross collisions. I mean, Prime is still, it's the same money for me, right? But I never had I never had this feeling that, oh, someone is subscribing to me. Thank you for the subscription. So like it's a new thing for me. I've never used boot.dev or free code camp, so I can't say anything about them. I'm sure, like I can tell you what I did in university. In university, we did MATLAB. And specifically what we were doing simulations of physical systems like fluid dynamics or I remember it was something about the penetration of water into soil or something like this. And we did quantum physics simulations for where the probability cloud around the proton was for the electrons and things like this. And they had a very like similar course, I think, to these boot.dev websites, because they gave you a task, or like they were explaining something and then they gave you a task like, oh, make an if function, or not if function, what do you call it, an if statement with two paths for the code. And I did that, and I kind of learned it pretty quickly because I did have some experience with programming. But it was definitely people there, they just didn't have a clue because they were not interested in programming. They just had to do it for the course, and it didn't help them at all. So maybe it helped some people. It didn't help me particularly, and it didn't really help anyone that I saw around me at that time. Where did I go to university? Hogwarts? Quantum physics for soil liquid penetration? No. Like they were different things. So it was a very simple problem because I think I have to paint it. I think it was just like a general physics problem where you have soil and then you have some layer of topsoil. So this is, brown or something. And then underneath you're having some rocks, so they're larger rocks with soil in between. And then you have maybe some sand and so on and so forth, right? And we would get some model where we had to simulate a few years of average rain, but the rain could be 40 millimeters one year and 45 millimeters another year. And then we knew the properties for the soil, and we knew how much was evaporating, how much was used by plants, how much, and basically we had to calculate after 100 years how much groundwater do you have underneath all of this. And that was just like a way of teaching us how to do recursive loops in MATLAB. Things are getting hardcore. But that wasn't super relevant to what we were doing. I forget what we were doing with fluid dynamics. I think it was like some wind calculations. But I just went to like a general physics program in university in Sweden. And yeah, in physics, I've forgotten most of it by now, but you probably know about the quantum physics atom wave function, right? You have this wave function, and it's defined by this equation. But it's not like you just plug this into a calculator. There's different things regarding the state of the proton or the electron, field equations, things like this. So basically it was just a way to visualize what we were working with in a practical sense, because we were doing all of this on paper, pen and paper, and then we could plot the fields in MATLAB. So it wasn't actually too complicated, the programming bit. It was mostly about the math. And the math, like even quantum physics, the math is not too complicated. It's like deriving the math is difficult. Making calculations on it when you understand it, it's not that bad actually. Is my game engine for learning, or do I have plans on using it for a game or an app? I am making a game, but like it's both. I wouldn't say if I was only interested in making a game, I would probably just use a game engine. If I was only interested in making the engine, I would probably not make too much gameplay, which I'm planning to do. I haven't added a lot of gameplay, but you know. I actually have to take a short break right now because I need to use the bathroom and fill my water and stuff. So uh, I'll be back in maybe 10 minutes. So yeah, be right back. All right, we are back. So yeah, let's think about this. If there's an error, we do nothing. If it's success, we need to pop a task, right? But the task is having a it's having a different queue here. Is it safe to just call the same here, task pop, without this infinite loop? Hmm. Maybe we remove the infinite loop here. But then we're kind of back to just like, we don't really need this at all. I feel like. I don't know. We just have to find out. So when we pop, the semaphore goes down. There should be a task. If there's not a task, we do nothing, but the semaphore still goes down. There can only be less tasks to do than there are semaphores, or the same. So if we run this, thread process all is not defined. Let's remove it. And then here also, and probably in the threads, this is the graphics. It's a completely different queue. It's past 12 a.m. where you live, getting tired, good chatting, good advice, good programming, good night. Thank you. Well, have a good evening. And yeah, I'm uploading all of my videos to YouTube. So if you ever feel like coming back to it, where you left off, then my channel, you're gonna find it here. Or you can go back in time and see what I was doing before. But yeah, have a good evening, dude. So the graphics queue does need to run the same thing, but it's not using semaphores because it doesn't need to. I don't want it to be on multiple threads even. And part of that is because you need to initialize an OpenGL context for the thread. And I don't want to deal with that on multiple threads to see how that works. So guess we do the same thing here, but with the graphics queue. And we don't do semaphore pop. We do job found. So there's a risk I'm going to be writing the same code multiple times, but I feel like usually it's better to write the same code multiple times until it comes a point where you are using it, 3, 4 times, 4 times, 5 times. And then you feel like, oh, I need to make a function for this. And that's kind of what I did before with the process all function. But right now, I feel like I need to think about I need to think about it differently because of the semaphore. So I'm just going to go back to not having a function for now. So that's running exactly as I would expect. And you can see it's consistent, still slow, but I think that's mainly because I'm running on one thread. Like it's not that slow. It's 2 milliseconds or 2 or 3 milliseconds, but still. And it looks like everything is updating properly. So it's definitely joining, because if I would not do this, then nothing would happen. Or well, okay. So what's happening now? Yeah, it could not push updates to the task queue. What's happening now is the graphics is reading from like 0 values and interpolating between it, but nothing is being updated. So yeah, there's no rogue thread processing tasks where I don't know. Yeah. So let's try to add the threads back. But the threads needs to have a little bit different logic. So or I guess it's the same logic actually. But we don't have a 0 here, we have like 1,000 for 1 second. So yeah, now you can see it's faster. Or barely faster. I wonder if I'm just not using enough objects to see a difference. Start game. Let's do 10,000 meteoroids. I think that still works. I might run out of memory. Yeah, I ran out of memory. Let's try 5,000. No. It's telling me the heap manager couldn't push, but which one? The entity manager. There's 4,000 slots. And I'm trying to push 5,000 on it. Yeah, that makes sense. Entity max. What is it? 8192. Let's just say 10,000. And I'm probably going to have to increase the prefab as well. meshes. Oh. Arena out of memory. I guess. I'm just trying to test something. Permission denied. Ah. So it's fine if we use more memory. Which arena? Hmm? Why is the glyph causing an issue? Oh, because it happens afterwards. Let's just keep increasing it. Okay. So now we can try 10,000. Is this actually 10,000? I don't feel like it is. $10,002. It's definitely not 10,000. Is there even a difference? It's exactly the same. That doesn't make any sense. Although I think I know what might be going on. I think the OpenGL mesh manager, maybe. It only goes up to this active count. Why is that? And we're pushing 55 meshes to draw. The reason for that, I'm almost certain it's down here. Not for the UI. The mesh is just going to be not available most of the time. No? Is it this one then? It's here. There's 1,000 of them. Let's do this just so we can break on this continue. '67 active. It takes some time for OpenGL to create all of them. But 1090, that's more than before. Doesn't seem like it's going above that. So I have a feeling that OpenGL is not creating my graphics meshes. But it's never hitting this and not getting it, because this has an assert. We always get, so we only call it 1090 times. This is the one we're actually pushing for the primitives, which are the meteoroids. And we get the mesh, and then we generate it, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's pushing it like normal. So if I'm calling this function 10,000 times, wait, how is it not creating it more than 1090 times? I wonder if it is, but for some reason I'm not writing it back after 1000. in entity C. A meteoroid. Want to jump back to the main thread, maybe? Oh, I see what's going on. I know exactly what's happening. It just took me a moment to realize. So, what are we doing here? We are pushing onto our queue, but the queue only goes up to a specific point. It only has 1,000 something. It only has 1,000 slots. So we can't just push 10,000. That doesn't work. And the reason why it's sometimes 1,090 or 1,055 is because sometimes maybe it takes longer for the graphics thread to create all of these primitives just because of the like thread scheduling and things like this. So you will see here, if I do success, when I press this, we're going to hit this assert. So the question is then, how do we deal with this? Do we sleep? Do we do this in a loop and sleep to let the graphics thread catch up? Or do we just increase the queue size? That could be one option. Buffer 8192. So I think we're running out of buffers now. 8192, right? Now there are ways we can get around this. Instead of in entity, right? Instead of queuing each one individually, we could create multiple. Although I don't know if that's actually what I want to do, because I don't want to create 8,000 meshes immediately on boot. Oh. Yes, we can't push 10,000. Really? Buffer create. How many buffers can we have? The buffer that I'm trying to create is a normal buffer. It's not a uniform buffer, right? Max vertex attributes. No, that's different. Could it be GL max array buffer? I don't know where to find a good list of all of these. There's 600 of them. And I need to have specifically some buffer draw buffers. Does it already exist? Or is this just running out of space? Hold on, I need to take a quick leak. Oh, right. So what I think is going on here is I'm having my buffers and I have a maximum amount of buffers, right? Buffer count. But because I'm using the same list of buffers for multiple things, VBOs and EBOs, I'm just running out of indexes to put them in. So it's not actually OpenGL limiting me. Yeah, okay. This looks better. And, well, it's, the physics loop is running at 33 milliseconds, but I think the drawing, now the drawing is having some issues. This is fairly consistent though. 14, 15, or 13, between 13 and 15. That's basically what you would expect, I guess. The question is, if I go back to my game, and I disable my threads, I should see a significant impact on the time it takes to process all of that. Yeah? Oh. I mean, it's a difference, but that's a very small difference. $17 to $19 milliseconds compared to this. Well, I guess it is significant there's a big difference between 14 and 17. I think just I am not scheduling all of the work equally. But it seems like the semaphores are working. And I guess a lot of the work is happening in this draw, which is not multi-threaded at all. So that could make sense. Anyway, I think that is getting close to the end. I'm hitting 3 hours right now. So the last thing I wanted to do, and I think we can do it pretty quickly, it's I don't want the game to pause when I do this, and then it fast forwards when I release it. And you can see that it fast forwards because, well, this time actual work, while it's paused, it has to go through all of that updates again. Oops. And you can see that it's like above, it's several seconds here that we're behind. But I would say if we are missing an update, we shouldn't just add it to the pile. Right now in the synchronization, we are measuring the time milliseconds until update. And if that's above 1, we do this. But we need to do if delta ms until update is less than 0. How do you say it? Exceeded. What is this? Time, state time, begin equals count and this needs to be I guess this can be void. We don't. If we reset, we know the time is 0 anyways. What else do we need to do? Time dt equals 0.0. That's it. So now I'm expecting that if we do the same thing and I halt it like this manually, it doesn't fast forward, as you can see. It just continues. And that's exactly what I would like. Now, of course, we don't want it to halt. Probably. Do we want it to halt? Oh, that's another bug. It's not updating something correctly. You can see things are wider when it's small. Actually, I think the aspect ratio might be correct. It's just not filling the entire screen for some reason. Or when it's smaller, it goes beyond the screen. Anyway, I think that's. I'm gonna call it there. I'm getting tired and hungry. But thank you very much for watching, and I will be back tomorrow probably. Yeah. See ya.